Stop the cap.
All right, some of you all give me some feedback on this, and I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna have. I've tried to have this conversation with Captain Solo to explain him, this problem that we have on the rare occasions that we try to make video. I have probably two or three other videos where Captain and Solo and I are, having these discussions, and in my opinion, they get so bad that we break out into argument, and um, that doesn't happen when it's just him and I talking on the phone. It only seems to happen when I'm actually making a video, and I am trying to steer the conversation. That's one, but the main thing is that oftentimes when Captain Solo is talking to me, he's talking to me and not talking to you all. And so he'll say things like, example, in the video that we just did, like even talking about the the drugs in the black community. There is a difference between millennials and Gen X, where, people were doing drugs, in the 1980s. My generation wasn't doing drugs like that. At best, we smoked marijuana, we drank a little, but the hard stuff, heroin, meth, I know meth came later, but, what's other drug, crack, cocaine, like even cocaine. I don't know any black people that were doing cocaine. We didn't mess with that stuff because we saw the zombies in the 80s. We saw the zombies, in the 90s, that we weren't about that. It wasn't until probably about the mid 2000s, 2010s that you started seeing people doing lean, and stuff like that. Um, I mean, at best, maybe people did some wet, like marijuana laced with PCP. I don't know anybody who was doing that shit. But it's like, I'm re-listening to the video, and I'm trying to, just explain the situation from, my perspective, what I saw and whatnot. And, it's like we got into a disagreement about it being about the economic situation. I know it's about the economic situation, and it's not the drug situation. But the thing is like, another example was where Captain Solo said, um, what did he say? The black community basically has nothing to offer. There's a whole larger context to that statement that you all need to understand, but you don't understand because that statement is from a previous conversation. So I feel like I have to interject and like go backwards, where it's like he's getting annoying because he knows I'm not explaining it to you. I'm explaining it to them so that they understand and can follow the conversation. And then him and I end up going back and forth because it's like he wants to move forward. And I'm like, no, you have to explain it to the audience so that the audience knows what you're talking about. And so, like, example, um, the whole statement about, what did I just say? The whole statement about the black community has nothing to offer. That comes from the conversation with I'm not going to say who it was, but basically a black woman, was talking about what black men need to do to, fix the black community and mentor young black boys. And it turns out that she didn't want to live in the community. And there's a number of people who are throwing up busy assignments, and they want the black community fixed. And I said this in the video, as it pertains to people who, they don't like the stench of poverty rubbing off on them. The black community is not any place that they would want to live, even if it was fixed up. And so if somebody comes in there and, they're looking for, like, if they're looking for prestige as opposed to a fixed black community, this is where you get into the black community has nothing to offer you. I mean, the idea is if we did have the resources, we'd be able to go into these areas, renovate these areas, fix the houses, fix the homes, make it look nice. It has the curb appeal, all that stuff. And then, deal with now that you have a solid, foundation, then you can, deal with, and all this is going to happen simultaneously, deal with the crime, deal with the economic opportunities, deal with the mindset, which is due to prolonged exposure to poverty. And that's a big issue. That's not something lightweight, because you got to deal with people's, people who are the byproducts of prolonged exposure to poverty. And there's a lot of people who they've built their identity off of street culture and prolonged exposure to poverty. And if you were to move back in that environment, you would have to contend with them. Okay. But when Captain Solo comes through and he makes statements like, the black community has nothing to offer, or has nothing to offer them, it's like, who are you talking about? What are the details of that? Explain that. Even though I've made a video about that in the past, again, every video I make, it's almost like you got to treat it like a new video, because let's say somebody decides to subscribe to me tomorrow and they come into the channel. And granted, you're not going to get necessarily everything we've ever talked about out of one video, but you do when you touch on a statement like that, you do have to break that down. I'm trying to think of another statement. Another statement that Captain Solo make would be like, it's their turn now. And I'm like, what do you mean it's their turn now? And I even after he's explained it and I know what he's talking about, a lot of times out of nowhere he'll just say, well, it's black women's turn now. And I'm like, what does that mean? And basically what he's talking about is how basically the doors are being closed on black women. You see all these black actresses, Tiffany Haddish and all these other women, right? They're bitching about the fact that there's no jobs for them. The whole thing with Hollywood, or the fact that they're not being paid, or the fact that they didn't get any money, or the fact that they're upset that they're not getting any money, even though they've taken the hit over the course of their careers in not making money, and they feel that their resume should speak for themselves, that now that they're older, they should be able to demand, higher prices. This has happened to Monique. This has happened to, who was the other woman, that the woman that got into it with Oprah over, The Color Purple, that sort of, and Cap's phrase, his catchphrase is, it's their turn now. That statement doesn't explain, what he actually means. It's not detailed enough. It's like, I read a comment last night of a black woman, and they were talking about, I think it was like Carmelo Anthony's ex-wife or something like that. And she was saying how she didn't want to get married again. And I was reading the comments, and there was a black woman in the comment, and the black woman said, if me and my husband didn't work out, I love my husband, but if it didn't work out, I wouldn't get married again, because, as a woman, like, basically, you're sacrificing yourself, and what else did she say? And you're not catering to your needs. Unpack that. Like, what does that mean? What are you not getting? Detail that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get tired of these vague expressions that people say, and they don't detail what they mean. Like, did you want to be CEO? Did you want to travel the world? What is it that, in terms of being a mother, that you feel like you're sacrificing? And see, this goes into the whole, a woman's womanhood and her personhood are not one and the same, right? And you see, I'm explaining that to you, right? It's like, well, what is she talking about? I have an idea, which is that a woman's personhood and her womanhood is not one and the same, where a man's personhood and his manhood are one and the same. Like, in other words, if I'm making money and I can provide for a family as a man, my career and my job and the money I make from that job and my ability to take care of my family are one in the same. So I'm comfortable, Okay, at that point, like I'm comfortable in my identity because I am a provider male making money, and I have a decent career, and I'm taking care of my wife. Okay, can't nobody tell me shit. Okay, where when it comes to a woman might be a mother and she wants to have kids, but she may want to do other things, and her doing those other things, like Ebony K. Williams, may interfere with being a mother, or being a wife, or being quote unquote submissive, right, or being a helpmate to her husband, right? These sorts of things where feminism clashes with family traditionalism, right? But see how even though I'm guessing what it is that this woman is saying, I unpack that. And I feel like when having these discussions with Captain Solo, when we're recording it, you know, he is having a conversation with me, and I'm trying to have a conversation with the audience. And this seems to be an issue every time him and I have a conversation. I'm going to talk to him about it. I'm just trying to get feedback from y'all. But this ends up being a problem every time, because I'm trying to explain so that the audience understands, and then you can respond however you want to respond. And you can break it down. But I'm explaining it to Captain Solo, and I'm trying to explain it to the audience at the same time, doing the whole color by numbers. Yes, it takes more time. But once they okay, all right, I see what Pete is saying. I see where he's going. I see, because these are conversations that, half the time, like, what's already understood doesn't have to be said. Like when Captain Solo and we were having conversations, like we already know, like, okay, 3 is blue, red is 2, yellow is 5, right? Like we already understand that. I can just use acronyms and boom, conversations moving forward. But when we're making videos, and this is one of the reasons why my videos end up being so long. When we're making videos, it's like he's having a conversation with me, and I'm having a conversation with him, but the conversation is I'm doing more talking because I have to explain or translate or steer, like either what Captain Solo's saying or framing it a certain way so that his responses are a certain way, about a topic, and it doesn't just end up being, we're just going off into the weeds and la la land. Because, like, example, like at the very beginning of the conversation, you know, I was trying to steer the topic into, okay, what happened with the Gen Xers and this whole racial thing, and your interactions with white folks, and that was primarily supposed to be the topic of the conversation. He saw the video, he's responding to the video, all that. We were going to come together, Aerosmith and Run DMC. Was it Aerosmith and Run DMC? Or Guns N' Roses and Run DMC? One of the two. You know what I mean? And the idea that, racism everything was cool until, the 1992, Rodney King beating happened. But, all the stuff about even getting into, like, the stuff about the building, like Cap has a real issue with, because this is the difference. This is one of the key differences. Okay. A lot of millennials were told to go to college, and we went to college, and the idea is that we were going to get out, we were going to get a 6-figure white collar job, and that we were going to be able to, live in the suburbs or live in the city if you wanted to. And if you lived in the city, your shit was going to be nice. It was going to be laid out. You either had a condo or you were living in a high-rise apartment, right? That was the vision. And a lot of black people hide their inferiority complex about being black with being educated. And you really see this profoundly with black women. It doesn't also it also happens with black men. The guy that graduated, he wasn't even a lawyer yet, and he's like, I'm the prize. That type of bullshit. And there's a lot of black people who, they're like, well, I'm educated, and education is supposed to equate to you making money. There's a lot of people who are educated and aren't making any money. They got degrees out the ass and aren't making any money. And because they majored in the wrong thing. I remember when I went on, it was either Madame Noir or Clutch Mag online, and one of the women, it might have been Daniel C. Belton, if I'm not mistaken, but it could have been somebody else. But basically, they were regretting their journalism degree because they're like, I got friends that are in finance and they're making money and they're living life, and I'm over here with this journalism degree and I'm writing articles for Madame Noir or whatever, and I'm not making any money. I'm barely, getting by. You know what I mean? So they were having, this reevaluation of life when it came to, the educational level that they chose. But Cap is a, t-shirt and jeans, type of guy. And, he's a blue collar guy, and he works with his hands, and he's all about building and, building up the community and repairing the community. But unfortunately, blue collarness has been smacked down in the black community and the white community as well. And what I had to explain to Captain Solo is this whole concept of the prestige concept. Like the whole, like people having different standards. Like for me, the idea, right, we should all minimally be having 2 children, right, to maintain the population. At least have 2 children. A man and a woman get together and they have a boy and a girl, or 2 boys or 2 girls or whatever. You're maintaining the population, essentially at that point. But it's like, if you ask me the type of lifestyle, that I would want for my children, like I didn't know, it's because, even in the comment section, some people were blown away by the concept of 2 sinks. You know what I mean? 2 sinks, for one for each child. Like you have a bathroom, like you have, let's say it's a 4-bedroom house. You have the 2 bedrooms for the kids, obviously. And listen to me, the master bedroom. There's a master bedroom, right? We know what that comes from, right? Then you have a guest bedroom, but you got the 2 rooms for the kids. Each child has their own room. Okay. I might think of, if I had 2 boys and they wanted, and, they got bunk beds or something like that and they're sharing the same room, but eventually they're going to want their own space. Okay. Or if they're different ages, right? This is how my mind works when I'm thinking about having a family, that the kids have their own room. Some states it's mandatory. Michigan, shit like that, it's mandatory. I think to have that the girl must have her own room. Boys can share a room, but the girl has to have her own room. But in any event, Cap was blown away by the whole 2 sinks concept. That I'm like, no, kids should have 2 sinks. They got their own toothbrush, their own sink, and that's how it should be. And then this opened up the door to other conversations about, this whole, idea and attitude of prestige. People thinking that houses are too old. They don't want your 70-year-old Levittown house. They want something newer. They want something different, right? Cap's all about building and repairing and all that. But like we talked about in the video, and we did get to it, but the whole concept of that the process of renovation in and of itself is somehow too blue collarish for people. You know what I mean? Like the whole attitude of, right, like you got a house and you have a lawn. There's people who look at you cutting your own grass as, oh, you ain't got it like that, right? Like there's people who look at it like if you don't have other people servicing you, you don't got it like that. And see, Cap's like, well, once I pick up on that, oh, you're going to be paying out the nose. Now that I know that there's people who think like that, which again, he didn't recognize that there were people. I mean, he's come across it, but he didn't recognize just how many black people in the black community, think like that. Right. And this rolls right into, black women and, the concepts and ideas they have in their head that I don't need no black man. I'm making enough money. I can go out there and I can hire some Mexican to do it. Right. Again, having this keep up with the Jones battle in their head with white people. And the point that I was trying to get to is, when it comes to a class in the black community, like, should we be functioning like that? Because if you're trying to if you're trying to counter all of the damage that white supremacy did, right? All the economic disadvantages that we have, the way that black youth have currently been oriented, which is that we're just going to go out here and get an education and then somehow beg white people for jobs and then get these jobs, and then we're just going to operate and function like white people with these class stratifications. You know what I mean? Just look at other black, your bootstraps. And I'm like, we don't have the ability to do that, right? Not if we're playing catch up, right? We don't have the ability to do that. White folks, they can go and be as bougie and aristocratic and blue blood, as they fucking want to be, right? And white people accept that. Black people, we seem to have a major problem with that, probably in large part because we don't create the superstructure. We don't create what is prestigious or what is high class or what is sophisticated, right? And a lot of black people in urban environments will be quick to smack that down because of that. And this is the damnable misery of being an African American, where it's like we don't know what we would be like in a vacuum by ourselves. There's always the smog of whiteness and white supremacy, in the room, right? Like I tried to bring up the point about black people going out and buying, Jordans and sneakers and always trying to, spending money on items that immediately make them look like, they have some sort of either status about themselves or that they're crispy and fresh and clean all the time. And I'm like, how much is that is a byproduct of white people running around saying niggas are dirty, and it's like, and shit, interracial relationships. We know that happens. Ask any white girl that has dated white guys and black guys, and they will tell you 9 times out of 10 that black guys are more hygienic. It's not even a close call. Black guys using lotion, black guys using cologne, black guys will throw out a pair of sneakers if the sneakers look like they're dusty. We see them white boys with them sneakers, with them laces tied super tight like they're strangling somebody. We seen that shit. Them white boys love some dirty ass white sneakers. All y'all love some dirty ass white sneakers, right? But again, white people, dominant group, right? They're thinking about other things. They're not thinking about how much they look like dust or look like poverty. Don't get me wrong. They have their little class differences and shit like that. And if I took somebody from Kentucky and dropped them off in Manhattan, they would very, quickly in short order start feeling some type of way, right? Feeling judged and whatnot. But black people, it's like black people have a white supremacist in their head criticizing them at all times, even when they're not there. Like, we like to make jokes about, how, we live in white people's minds rent free. Like, they're always obsessed with what we're doing. And truth be told, white people live in black people's minds rent free, because we're always worried about how shit looks, how shit's going to be perceived. What are them white folks going to say? Right. And when it comes to, black people in the streets, a lot of black people, they toss all of that out. But sometimes they toss it out so much that because pretty much all structures are white, they end up tossing out structures themselves. So structures themselves and standards themselves get labeled as Eurocentric, to where you're just literally left with nothing but anarchy. And then that becomes a problem. You see? But it's like when I'm having these conversations with Captain Solo, and I'm like, and he's trying to move the conversation and explain his points and move it in a certain direction. I'm like, you gotta unpack that and you gotta explain that to people. Like, even when it comes to like criticisms of black men and whatnot, like, I get frustrated with Captain Solo when, which he acknowledges at this point, but I'm saying, when we're talking about why black men aren't doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, you're talking about a population of men that has been disproportionately raised by women. What do you think you're going to get out of that? You're not going to get a warrior class, You're not going to get black men that automatically know what they should be doing relative to white men who have been raised by their patriarchal father. You're not going to get that. Why do you keep bringing it up like you're going to get that? You're not going to get that. And the same thing could be said about, black women, and the way that they, react and interact, with black men when certain things aren't in place. You know what I mean? But you gotta explain that you at least understand that part. Otherwise, you get the idiots to come in the conversation and then they run with shit. And then the comment section ends up being a whole bunch of, well, why didn't you bring up this? And why didn't you say that? And how come you didn't mention this? You forgot about this. You forgot about that. And it's like, oh my God. It's just like the thing with Six the Goddess. The conversation about Six the Goddess represents a category of black women that are attractive. And I got dudes bringing up bullshit out of left field, shit like, oh, well, what about her past? I'm like, that has nothing to do with the way that the woman looks. Or I got guys talking about how, well, I don't like tens because tens, I can't handle the way that other men react to a woman that's a 10. I want to set that has nothing. That's your own insecurity. That has nothing to do with the way that Six the Goddess looks. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, and maybe I should. And this is again reinforcing my own point. It's like instead of using Six the Goddess, I was using Six the Goddess as a representation of a category of black women, the category of black women that are attractive. Okay. And then this is where dudes fail, because then when I say, okay, present your woman. If Six ain't it, present your woman that's in the category of a black woman, brown skinned black woman that's an 8 and above. Name her. And then this is where niggas fail. And I'm like, that's why you get hit with the colorism and the self-hate label. Because you can't even present. Okay, I presented mine. I think she's an 8 or a 9. Boom, I presented her. Six the Goddess. And then y'all, okay, oh, I don't agree with you, Pete. Okay, fine. Present yours. Present your 8 or your 9 or your 10. Present it. And y'all can't present it. Y'all go into all this bullshit about, oh man, why don't you go holler at Six the Goddess? Completely missing the fucking point. And since I'm the one that makes the videos, I'm used to, I read the comments. I'm used to the idiocracy that goes on in the comment section if you don't properly lay shit out or frame certain shit. The same thing, Kap And Swp and I, we were going to do a video about FD Signifier. And that just ended up turning into a damn, shouting match. So I didn't post that video because that just would have looked bad. But then, he went and I sent him the videos of the links of FD Signifier and what FD, he's like, I don't really watch him and everything. He was just going off of what I said. And then, we got into an argument based off of what I was saying. And then when he went and he watched FD Signifier's video, he was like, nah, I ain't got no comment. He's like, I ain't got, this motherfucker's on some, well, black men, we just can't because, the economy is as such. So we might as well assume, the bitch ass position and play the subordinate because, patriarchy is dead. Cap's like, I ain't got no comment for that, man. He's like, I mean, fuck what he's talking about. He's on that, basically like get rich or die trying type of shit. But again, after he listened to the video, it's like, okay, if we had the conversation would be totally different because now he knows what FD Signifier is about. He understands his ideology, his thought process after watching, like, I think it was like one of the videos about the manosphere and another video about like the patriarchy or something like that. And he's like, oh, he's way out there with the shit. I'm like, yes, that's why I was trying to make the video, with you. But again, that was my fault because, he should have watched the video. And the same thing, Cap will send me stuff and then, I'll comment on it and not know, like he sent a video to me the other day and it was of Antoine, and Antoine was talking about It was a dude. What was it? No, was it a dude? The dude was. Oh, the dude was up there talking about why he doesn't date single mothers. And Kap was going off. I thought he was talking about Antoine. And I'm like, Antoine's married. I'm like, Antoine, like, I don't have a problem with Antoine speaking up for childless men and saying, that, making the point about how childless men don't want to date single mothers. I was like, he's married. I don't have any problem with that. You know what I mean? But what Kap was talking about is he was talking about the man in the video that Antoine was doing a review of, where that man was a father, and I don't think he was married, but he was a baby daddy, and he was talking about how he doesn't date singles. He's like, man, fuck that. You got two people with kids, and you got a dude up there with the audacity of talking about he don't date women with kids, and he's got kids and not married to the woman that he had the kid with. Like, man, fuck this dude. But I thought he was talking about Antoine, but I didn't look at the video. So we were having almost like a quasi argument over a video that I didn't even watch. You see? And this is why context is important. And this is why when shit is being laid out, I'm like, Kap, you can't talk to, I mean, we're doing an interview, but I'm saying you can't necessarily talk to me exactly the same way that we talk when we're offline, because people need to understand. You got to break it all the way down. You got to lay it out in a nice chronological order. You can't just skip around. Yo, see, the black community ain't got nothing to offer. And I'm like, wait, no, like, explain that. It has nothing to offer to the people that are looking for prestige and a bougie ass lifestyle, that only want the black community fixed because they don't want the stench of the black community to spill on to them, even though they have no intentions of living there, even if it was fixed, even if it was safe, even if it had all the things going for it. I got a phone call coming in, so I'm gonna have to end this video. But that I just wanted to point that out to y'all. I just wanted to lay that out. So I'm gonna have to talk to him to try to get, because I want to do videos with Kap, but I'm saying, like, he doesn't seem to understand that I'm trying to explain, I'm trying to lay out the framework, and then he can respond however he wants to respond. But I want people to understand certain things before we dive in there. Otherwise, the conversation can get stupid. That's why my videos end up being so long, because you have, trust me, as somebody who sat here and read all these comments and make video responses, unfortunately, most people are stupid, and they get stupid if you don't lay shit the fuck out. So anyway, I got to take this phone call. That's my video, SWP. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. But like I said, if y'all want to give me feedback, give me feedback. I'm just trying to work on, making things as crystal clear. But him and I, we end up getting into this interruption shit, and let me finish my thought and all this other shit. And I'm like, because you're not explaining it to the audience. It has to be understood. And you're talking to, different generations and all that other stuff. It's anyway. That's my video, SWP out.